Great fun. Thank you, Kimba. That was wonderful. I had the CD, and it had a plastic around it, and I was so wondering what it was like, and I thought, gee, this is so interesting. And I discovered that I could work it around and get the CD out and keep the plastic intact. Well, this was a special arrangement. I'm sure it was that way on purpose so that I could do this. There's no accident here. To get it open and I read the stuff, and of course it says, she's had a near-death experience. And I listened to it and everything was great. And I said, oh, well, we have to have her. So I get online right away and come up with an email address and emailed her, and she would email me back, and here she is. That's how it happens. But it must have been very guided, because I then folded it all back up in and stuck it all back in and worked it gently back into the plastic, so nobody could ever tell that I'd ever been in there. But anyway, I sent it off, and I'm sure my friend enjoyed it. Anyway, that's how I found out about Kimba. And she's going to tell you more about herself and all about her near-death experience, as well as her wonderful instrument, the didgeridoo. So please give a warm welcome to Kimba Arem.
That might be too dark.
That's too dark.
Whatever you do.
Normal.
How's that? Is that okay for the video?
How does it look on there?
Very
Looks
nice.
good.
On the video, is she all right? Can you see her face?
How's the volume? You can hear me okay?
Yeah.
I have to speak kind of close in here. Can you turn the volume on this up a little so I don't have to hold it right in my mouth?
Yeah?
How's that? Yeah. No, eat my. Maybe it's ice cream.
Let me try one other. That doesn't really help either, does it? Is it, what's it looking like on the?
I can stand it here. I just, those really bright ones.
You're good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hope it turns out.
So I like to begin with saying aloha. Aloha. Aloha means in the presence of the breath of life, which connects us all. This is a Hawaiian greeting and what you say when you depart. I've lived in Hawaii for about 12 years and just recently met my partner and moved to Boulder. So I am now on the mainland and getting used to being back in a different reality. But I still love that way of greeting people because it honors that the breath of life is what is the spirit that is within each of us and that connects us. So, and I also want to say, I don't want to be a talking head for an hour and a half. So if during this sharing, you have questions that feel inspired to bring to the group, I would really welcome that because I feel like I want this to be a conversation more than a lecture. And the other thing I want to say is that actually sharing this experience is not something I've ever done or wanted to do in a big group. And part of the reason is if people have not had a taste of, and I've shared it with people for sure, but not in a large context. But this is the perfect setting because everyone here has either had an experience or is interested in it. So I felt good in saying yes. Normally when I'm in front of a group of people, which always surprises me, what I'm doing here, I'm talking about what I do with sound or the didgeridoo and teaching workshops in sound therapy or music. So since there are people that are interested in both here, in what sound therapy is, how to use it as a healing modality, and also the actual experience that got me into it, or back into it, I'm going to try to encompass everything, including a little bit of what led up to my experience. So there's a lot that I want to share, and once again, if there's a point where it's just like too much talking, please let's connect. I like to always sit in a circle. So this is almost like a circle. We're kind of like a semi-circle. But that's just, I feel like we're all one. And I know that we are from my experience. And I like to live life from that and try to cultivate that perception every day. Even as the years have gone by since I've had this experience, it's harder to maintain those perceptions that these experiences were near death. So I like to begin with a little bit of my childhood. I never had a history of any kind of spiritual experiences, but if I think back to when I was a kid, I was always inclined toward altered states. You know, I used to spin around and just to get dizzy from a very young age. And one day I was sucking on a butterscotch candy and spinning around, and it, centrifugal force, it went, and I could not breathe. And I was with my mom, and I'm like 3 years old or something, and showing the universal sign for I am choking. And my mom didn't know the Heimlich. And she was freaking out and didn't know what to do, and I was like, I'm gonna die. So that was the first time I looked at death, but I actually didn't, because I'm here. Despite everything I've tried, I am still here. And it just went through at some point, but I just remember that was my first kind of awareness of looking at death. And then at age 8, I actually fell in a glacier pool filled with water and almost froze to death, and that was my next look at death. But other than that, I didn't grow up in a household that really, my parents aren't New Age, they're open-minded and very loving. And, we didn't grow up with a lot of drama, always a lot of love in my family, very intellectual, well-educated, but not New Age or spiritual. But I remember when I was 8 years old, I would sit in the hallway, and I never told anybody, I don't even think I've ever told anybody this, including my parents, that I would find pictures that my parents had of like my great-grandparents, old black and white photos, just their headshots, and I would sit in the half light at night in the hallway door, and the light had to be just right, and I would stare at the pictures of their faces, and the faces would start to come alive. They would start moving and talking, and I didn't hear anything, but I saw them, and I was just fascinated by this, and I didn't think anything of it, but I was drawn to do it. But that's it. Those 3 experiences are all I wanted to share with you as far as any pre-history of what led to my experience. So I'm going to fast forward to 1992. It was November, and exactly 6 months to the day opposite of my birthday, which is November 22nd. I was 21 then. And so the story is, I was pre-med, I was studying molecular and cellular biology. I always loved nature, and music was always my love. I studied, because I was always like a shy kid. Music is I never saw it as something, it was like what I did for fun. What I did as my medicine day, I would go over and play flute. And I was naturally good at it, and I loved doing it. But when I got to the age where I had to choose a career path, my father was a medical doctor, and there's this lineage of medical doctors and families, so I was like, well, my brother went into music, so I better be the one. I mean, I didn't know all this. It was all these unconscious choices along the way of what I think I should do. So anyway, I'm just about to graduate. I'm in honors program, molecular cellular biology, minor in math and physics, very well developed left brain, with music on the side whenever I have time or can find a piano to play. And the guy I was dating at the time, experimenting with these substances, and I'm like, I was really against any kind of drugs whatsoever. And I don't want to kill, So anyway, but we everything and take notes and do it like the right scientist. So, and the substance that he was experimenting was LSD. And so I was like, all right, and I read up about it. But then I read a lot, there was a lot of the sources were spiked with different kinds of toxins. And I was like worried about that. I was like, well, what if your source isn't good? And you get some poison in it. And he's like, no, we got something like dancing testing. And I was like, okay. So we planned it all out, and I'm summarizing here just to, a lot of, what went into bringing this experience to the table. But, so it all came together on this night. It was November 22nd. So we have it all planned out. We take the substance, and we're sitting there listening to music in my room. And after about an hour, things started to feel a little bit different, and I never had any experience, any foundation for altered states whatsoever. And I'm like, well, the music, feeling okay. And he turns to me and he goes, something's wrong. He's like, and I go, what? Everything seems fine. It's like, well, what if we took too much? Because he decided we should do double the dose that he normally does, because we had taken twice. And so, I don't know if I said that. But anyway, we took another dose. And I was like, what? You can take too much? Because I never read that you can overdose on this stuff. And so, that was the beginning of the end. Because if you're in a state, everything's new, and then you introduce this, well, what's the worst that can happen? So your mind goes to this place where it's not good to be in a negative state and to be under the influence of a substance that amplifies your mental, whatever it is you're thinking. It can be very good. So we proceeded to descend into hell, to put it mildly. And so he's like, okay, we gotta get some help. We weren't gonna call, the police or my parents. So he's like, you call a friend and I'll call a friend. We were sober enough to figure that out. And so we did. And fast forward 8 hours of this. My friend comes over, his friend comes over, and we get through it. And I'm like, I'm never doing any of this stuff again. That was like the worst experience of my life, totally. It was like, so I'm kind of not going into the details of that. So totally, and we were drinking water and, thinking about dying and wondering if there was toxins in what we took. And at that time, I was really skinny. I was probably about 100 pounds and just really active. And always, I was working 2 jobs and I was full-time school and I didn't know how to take care of myself really. But I was 21, so your body's really resilient. But the truth is, I wasn't on a path of having a really healthy, long life. Besides the fact that I was just about to graduate and enter into a career that which I later found, well, that night actually, wasn't my heart's path. So it was really kind of very divinely orchestrated how this all happened and the opportunity and just how everything came together for me to really, at a crucial juncture, reevaluate my life. Besides being physically, not only physically, but mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, I wasn't like whole. I wasn't, not that there was a lot of trauma obvious on the surface, but in given years, and I was later shown, not only was I given this evening a preview, a life review of everything that had happened in my life, which I'll talk about in a little bit, but over the next few years, and that night, I was given a preview of the actual path that I was on and what my diagnosis would be, what age I would die if I didn't radically change the direction I was going. So these kind of experiences give you both directions because you're outside of linear time. So I was given a review and a preview and kind of a choice, although it wasn't really a choice, but it was, of, okay, if you're going to be here, you got to show up. So am I losing anybody? I know I'm jumping around a lot, but there's a lot that's on a lot of levels that's going on here. So we're sitting, fast forward back to in the room, totally exhausted, 8 hours of this hell. I mean, hell is the place on earth if you go there. And I was like, okay, we're back. But I was completely exhausted, and so we're sitting in the room, and there's 4 of us. There's 2 men and 2 women who are sitting in a circle. Me and my partner and the 2 people that at this point, it's like the wee hours of the morning, and we have music going, and there's Christmas lights on, and burning some Nag Champa incense which somebody brought. So we have all these this environment. And we're looking at a book of fractals, which are a new thing to me. Does anyone here know what fractals are? This book was a big picture book by Michael Briggs, I think, and another author, but it had pictures of fractals in nature and in math, and how equations, you know, every leaf and form in nature actually has a mathematical equation underlying it. And it was just like seeing the connections, looking at the spot and Jupiter's red spot, and learning about chaos and how order arises out of chaos. And there's this perfection in the chaos that is so much grander. And so we were just thinking about all these concepts. And having gone, we couldn't sleep, you know, but we had just gone through this experience. We're looking at this book. And at this point, I'm recording the session because now we're actually having a conversation. Remember, I had set it up like a scientist. I'm going to record and document everything. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to record because we're still in session. Like my left brain's still hanging on, right? And so we're having a conversation, and if you play back the recording, you hear us talking, and we're kind of getting into this concept of chaos and fractals and nature and perfection and order and math and music and science. And all of a sudden, we just stopped talking. But we didn't stop talking. We at some point, mid-sentence, you can hear it on the tape, we entered into a telepathic conversation. And we didn't realize this at first. Well, I didn't. I'm going to speak from first person, because there are 4 of us, and there's a lot of dynamics in each person's perception. But this is not something, I didn't even knew what telepathy was. I had never heard the concept. I just realized that we were talking and we weren't using our mouths. And so on the tape, what you hear is like, all of a sudden, there's like a few minutes of silence, and then you hear my friend Lynn, she's like, oh my God, and then silence for another few minutes. And then you hear my boyfriend say, is this an out-of-body experience? And then the tape ends. So, but probably that's where any conversation ended. Because I know I just talked for 15 minutes, but this is where the experience began. And this is also where it's hardest to use words to describe what happened. But during the experience, we each were given a role. Well, we weren't given a role. We each have a purpose. We each have a role that, like if you think of our body, has these liver and heart and lungs and skin cells and neurons and everything, and they all have a role. And they're encoded in their DNA and in their soul multidimensionally what they're here to do. And if every cell in our body is doing what it's here to do, our body's healthy. It's just functions as a unit. And we're no different than that. And that's the fractal idea. It's like we're all like cells. Well, maybe the next scale out would be Gaia. Some people say the Earth is a sentient being. And we're like different cells in the body of the Earth. Some people say, well, we're the neurons, because we use our mental body so much, and we use the telecommunication systems of electricity to connect the neurons of the planet. But this is the fractal idea, but it plays itself out on every scale, as above, so below, infinitely out to the universe. And this is what I was seeing in this state. But locally, I mean, it was like it started with the experience and it kept going out and out and out. So it started in the room. So I realized we each have a role. There's 4 of us. And somehow the portal for us to enter this state was created by the 4 of us that were there. Not only the energies of the 4 of us that were there, but there were other people in the room. And this is not a concept that I had had any foundation for. There were other beings. In my eyes, it's not like I was seeing this. This was all an experience of just complete omniscience, I guess you could say, or knowing. I felt there were other people in the room. Some of them I knew. There were people, but I didn't know them very well. They were like this one girl on campus that I had seen like 2 months ago, and some people that weren't even in bodies, that not even had just recently died. They were just spirits in the room, and maybe they were my guides or my other people's. I didn't have any terminology, no foundation for any of this. It's only been however many years since '92. I don't even do the math right now. That all of the terminology and words to describe what happened have come in. So we were there. We were each holding a certain role to create the portal that opened for us to go into this place that we were going. And we were on a journey now. And there were other people in the room. Some of them were living, but their spirit was there with us. Some of them were not living, but their spirit was there with us. So every step of the way, I'm just completely blown away. And what's happening, if I could, and remember, it's really hard to use words for any of this. So it doesn't touch it at all. But my role was, I was the voice. Okay, whatever that meant. But that was the only, thing that I could bring back if I were to have a word to describe my role, would be the voice. And I wasn't talking, but it was all a telepathic experience. Now, what was happening was we were, if I were to use a word which doesn't approximate, would be, say, melting. And we were melting into a place. And the place that we were melting into is, if I could describe it, which I can't, it would be, imagine the best orgasm you ever had, okay? We'll take that and put it to the power of Google, which is a 1 with a million zeros after it. So you know what the power is, it just amplifies, you multiply it by itself, it's just exponential. There isn't even a number. But that experience of that place that you go when you have an orgasm is where we were going. And it's not a physical experience. There wasn't any bodies involved. And it's light, and it's sound, and it's every sensation, but it's so much more than anything that you can even conceive of. And there's no self in that place. There's no, I am. There's no I am there. So it's weird to even have a way to remember having gone there or even describe it. Because you come back and you're like, I am. You're like, no. Because that place, all you want to do is be there. It's almost like the biggest addiction you could ever have for anything. And that's the place where you want to go. And it completely takes away your fear of death, because I realized, well, that's where we go when we die. But you have to, there's all these stages. There's whatever the Buddhists call the bardos, or, you don't just die and go there. And even in this experience, there was unfolding and unfolding. So what was happening was we were melting into this place and touching this state. And then we would come back. But we would come back into, okay, we're in bodies, but it would be like the awareness of, okay, there's a portal and each of us has a role. We're in telepathic communication, but why are we back? And then there's the awareness of individual identity. But my role was to identify the 4 of us on multi-dimensional levels, physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual levels, and I didn't have the language for this then, but now I would look at it as karma, or samskaras, or they're Buddhist terms, that they talk about. They're like little glitches in our being that we accumulated over a lifetime that keep the veils in front of our eyes from being able to go to this place. And babies, they're in that place. They just came from there. But it takes years to build up these layers of forgetting and conditioning and stuff in the body, stuff in the mind, stuff in our emotional bodies. And our spirit starts to forget. I don't think our spirit can really gather stuff. I don't have this all figured out. I'm just trying to translate. But, in this experience, it was like I would identify, oh, well, my friend here, she has this trauma from age, and I would totally describe it. And this was like a telepathic psychotherapy session. And once I would describe it telepathically to the group, she would be able to identify it, see it, and let it go, and then we would go back. And we would melt back into this place. And my role was to just get us there. And whatever's in the way, I'm going to identify it and analyze it and describe it telepathically, and then we could go back. And this kept going on. We had hours of this. It wasn't even in time. I don't know how long. We were there for eons, there's no. So, and during this time, each of us had our own experience, but I was, not only doing this job, but I was also looking at my life and seeing my life unfolding, everything from my birth. At that time, I didn't have any past life stuff coming in. I was just looking at my life from this birth and everything, but from this perspective that saw how everything was completely perfect and how everything on every level, multidimensionally, is always perfect. And there was a sense of peace that I got from that. Even the things that seemed like mistakes, even the things that seemed really painful, or all the challenges that I had had, it's like, I was like, I'll never, ever let go of this perception, because I know this is the real truth. That everything is always perfect on every level, and that's God consciousness, you know. And I was given that insight of my life, and saw how that it all brought me to this moment. And some things were with really deep sadness, you know, like, wow, you know, do I want to, what have the choices I had made? And it was like a really deep deciding, like, do I want to be here? And if I do, I've got to make some major changes in my life, like radical, like unbelievably radical. If I want to live, number one, and learn, I had so much to learn and to make changes. And the other side of that was, there was the four of us in this experience, and we each, when we got to a certain point of depth in this experience, we of each kind of reviewing our lives, we realized that we had a choice. And if we kept going deeper into this place of melting back into this experience, which you never want to leave. I mean, it's like, I'm not going to talk about it too much, because it's just like, I just think about, I just want to be there. But the fact is that you don't get to go there till you're done. And there was this realization that it wasn't our time. It wasn't like this grand voice saying, you must go back. You know, it was like this really deep soul knowing that we each had work to do. And that this was an amazing gift that would change all of our lives completely. And completely did. So, just going to take a breath right here.
I got a question. Did the other two people take the Institute with you? They joined you later?
One of them did.
Yeah, so they still could tie into your telepathy.
Yeah, and I do think that certain substances, it's almost like they give us permission to access parts of ourselves that we maybe forgotten, or, you know, other cultures, indigenous people know how to do this, but they didn't get deconditioned is how to learn. Like Aboriginal people, where the didgeridoo comes from, they can lay down and die. They know how to do that, and that kind of inner technology blows me away to think about. Wow, I mean, people in our culture, wow, we can try to commit suicide and it doesn't always work, and they can just leave their bodies, you know.
And they come back.
No, they can die.
Oh.
They can completely, you know, there's so much that's in the Western world has been forgotten of these inner technologies, and certain substances, you know, but by the time this experience happened, I mean, we've gone through the 8-hour peak of, you know, not that it wasn't in the system, but it gave us this window to access. And I didn't know that it was a near-death experience. We have a question. Yes, Diane.
Somebody asked the question. Would you repeat the question?
Oh, sorry. This gentleman asked if the other people that were in the group had also taken the substance. And I said that one of them had. So he's saying, oh, well, then you can tie into the telepathy more easily. And so at that time, all I knew was that my life was going to change. And, you know, I came out of it in the next morning, kind of really, in a way, on the deepest soul level that I'd ever had been, like, sad. Because I had touched into that place, and you just want to be there. There's a sense of peace that I know when people talk about it, when they have near-death experiences, like, this light and this, well, you can't even begin to describe it with words. There's no peace like it on the planet that we've ever known. It's like you're completely free of emotional, mental, physical, spiritual discontent on any level. And it's like, even in our dreams, we're not in that place. But to just step outside of that and get a taste of that is, it's really hard. It's hard to come back and be in the world. But the trick is, what did you say? To be in the world but not of it. And I think what he meant by that is to remember this place. And he also said something about the eyes of the child, and having the eyes of a child, you can enter the kingdom of heaven. And I'm not into religion. I was raised, my parents were Jewish, but I never was religious. It was kind of a way to be in community, very, kind of reform, or I don't even know the term. We use he, she for God. It wasn't dogmatic. But they're real open-minded. We traveled all around the world, so I kind of had an open-minded environment. But a lot of the sayings that different mystics and saints, and St. Francis, and all these things, since 92, I am totally, I feel like my life started in 92. And so maybe I'd like to take an interlude with, okay, well, let's take this question.
Yeah, I wondered, how and when did you switch over from that hellish situation to the heaven blissful situation? What changed in that time period?
We were completely exhausted. It was like 8 hours of just like, eventually your mind just gives out. You're just like, you can't go any further into hell. Okay, we're not going to die. We're looking at death. Oh my gosh. Who knows? I was really skinny. There might have been some toxins in with the substance. We took twice the amount. So I think my body was on the edge. Number one, it was a new substance. And my mind was completely on the edge. And it was like completely physical and mental and emotional exhaustion. And a lot of cultures around the world, people will induce altered state by, fasting or vision questing or sweat lodges, and I love all that too. I mean, the sweat lodge part, but not too into fasting anymore. I did that for a while, but because for years after, I was like, I want to get back there, but how to maintain that. But this is, I think what happened, I was just completely put through it. And then once we were in a state where, okay, it's safe, my soul said, okay, this is all this work to prepare you. Now your experience starts. And however we get there, our soul creates the circumstances for that. Spirit creates it. Spirit has a plan. And our higher selves, I think, have a plan that's so much wiser than our local mind. And sometimes if you're really left brain dominant, like I was, it kind of clouds out your right brain intuitive guidance that tells you consciously what's going on. But I think because of music in my life, my right brain was developed enough that I acted, even if it was unconsciously, on impetus from my intuitive self. And it's getting stronger now throughout my life, especially since then. Like, my intuition is just growing. And it's something we all have, but it's a faculty that we've kind of lost a lot in the Western world. We're not taught how to cultivate our inner knowing. All of our authorities are given to the priest or the doctor. What's wrong with me, doctor? Instead of, well, ask your body. We're not trained to look inside for the answers, so it's a process. But that's where the truth is. And you had a question.
I'm just curious if afterward, if the other three people had similar experiences that they remembered.
Yes, and that's like, gosh, I wish we had all night to talk about this. Even just, I'm totally summarizing this experience. Everybody did have a life-changing experience. And their roles were different, just like we're each such a unique being. And our perceptions are unique, but it was an event. It definitely changed us all, yes.
I just wonder how this relates to sound healing.
That's what I was just going to get into, actually. So.
But the other two people did not have the substance and yet shared this experience with you, did they also perceive crossing over, or?
You know, there's one person that I didn't even know that I didn't know her before the event. She was my boyfriend's friend, and I never talked to her again after the experience. But the other people were good friends, and so I can't follow up on her. But I know that we all definitely had an experience that was life-changing.
Wow.
So how this relates to sound therapy, and you know, this is a group for people, you know, near-death experience, but I know there's a lot of interest in sound, and actually for me they're intricately tied in, so I want to leave some time to talk about that. And that's what I was going to do an interlude with the didgeridoo, because what happened after this experience, you know, so you got the gist of what happened that night, and like I said, there's no words to describe this. So if you got any taste of it, it's like, bless you, you know, because it's not easy to. And I don't like to talk about it because I always feel like it's kind of degrading the experience a little bit, you know, like a really, like a MP3 version of, you know, a surround sound mix, and it's just such a big difference. And I mean, that's not even a big comparison, but so fast forward to the night, the next morning, I was completely like a baby. Like it was, I remember it was November 23rd in the morning, and no, it was 22nd was the morning. So I guess we started on the 21st. And my parents, every Saturday we went hiking up in the mountains on our favorite trail, that one. And it was just starting to snow. And I said, I called my parents, I'm like, I don't know how to talk about it. My life's totally changed. I'm a new person. My mom knew something big had happened, because you know moms, they're intuitive. And she's like, well, I'll bring the tape recorder. That must be where I got it from. So we went on this walk, and my mom took this tape recorder, and I just ranted and raved for an hour of like just what happened. And I listened to it like a year later. I sounded so young. I probably still do, but at least I have more terminology. You know, I had no foundation for this. And my parents thought I had lost it. Like they thought I was totally crazy. But they loved me, and they know I'm, you know, a pretty, you know, I'm an intelligent person. So I'm like, okay, you know, and they just listened and recorded. And over the next 4 years, I proceeded to have a spiritual emergency, in the words of Stanislav Grof, if any of you know his work. And if you don't, definitely get into his stuff. Stanislav is a living genius, he's still alive, and he's explored the transpersonal realms for his entire life. And he knew exactly what I was going through. And my parents didn't. They had not had an experience like this. But I was at the U of A, and I had read one book that had clued me into any kind of alternative thinking, and it was called Perfect Health by Dr. Andrew Weil. And I was like, well, he's at the U of A. So, and this was like 2 days, it was Monday, I had the experience on Saturday morning, so I'm like, I gotta talk to this man, he'll know something. So I show up, and I'm still completely blasted. I know I was blasted for years, but especially 2 days afterwards. And I walked up to his secretary, and I'm like, I need to talk to Dr. Weil. She's like, who are you? I'm like, my name is, well, at the time I was in Kimba, I was going by Kimberly. She's like, well, I'll go see. And so she went in, and she's like, well, you said go in, you know? And so I went in and had to sit down, and I just told my story. And Dr. Weil, he looked at me, and I could tell he knew, he saw me. You know, he knew what was going on. And he said, I think you should talk to my friend, Steve Rook, who is a man who is a computer programmer who had been working with fractals for 15, 20 years, who became my mentor and spiritual guide for many years, and Dr. Weil off on the side. But we always had a connection from then. And proceeded to read voraciously every book. Like, I would read 10 to 12 books on anything I could, you know, Carlos Castaneda, anything on altered states, Stanislav Grof's work, spiritual emergency, 10 to 12 books a week. And it wasn't like I wasn't reading them. I was reading, and I just needed help, you know. And my parents sent me to a psychologist, and my psychologist was like, "You're fine." You know, we actually had these really fun conversations. And after like 2 meetings, he's like, you know, he told my parents, you shouldn't be paying me. We're having we're having a great time. And she's fine. So my parents didn't know what to do, but and I didn't have any mentors except this fractal program, which was great. But the didgeridoo. So, about a month later, I had to graduate that year, and I was like, I know I'm not going to go to medical school, because I was given the life preview, and which I'll talk about a little bit if you guys are interested. And I was like, and I'm not going to use molecular and cellulology and be in a lab. I'm like, gosh, I need to follow my heart. Otherwise, I don't want to be here. That was the number one thing. I'm like, if I'm going to live, yeah, I need to make changes, but I need to do what I love. And that's the only thing that's going to make this life bearable until I can go back there. So, but I didn't know what that was. I didn't know what I loved. I was so conditioned that science and math, and I was going to be a medical doctor and have a whole life planned. And now I didn't know where I was going to go the next day. So there was this lady on campus, and I was walking to my organic chemistry class, and a tree would be nearby, and I would get sucked into the tree, literally, and my head would fall forward, and I couldn't feel where the bark and my head ended. I would just absolutely commune with the spirit of the tree, going to class. And I'm like, oh my God, no, I gotta get to class, I'm gonna be late. Here I'm communing with every tree I walk by, and I'm just melting into everything. But I knew I had to graduate, and I didn't know why. I just because not everything was spelled out in that experience. I just, I knew I was awake now, but I didn't know much else than that. So anyway, there's this lady, and she has this thing lying on campus, and she's doing hair wraps. She's hippie, tying hair, putting in the colored. They used to be really big. This was 92. And I'd never seen one of these before. And in 92, nobody had heard about a didgeridoo. They're very unknown in the US, although they've been around for at least 150,000 years for the Aboriginal people. It's the oldest instrument on the planet. Now they're all over, and I have some theories of why. But in the last 20 years, they've really, or however many years, they've become very popular. And there's a lot of gifts in this instrument. So I saw the instrument, I said, what is that? She said, it's a dream pipe. That's her partner who made these, who lived in Tucson where I was living, called them. And I said, well, play it for me. I knew it was an instrument, I knew that much. And she played it, and the sound was like something, key. Literally, the musical term, key. It unlocked something. And I said, I need one now. I don't care what they cost, I need that in my life. She's like, okay, I'll get you one. So I got one the next day, and I could play them pretty much right away. I got a tone. Circular breathing took about a week to learn, but years to master. And I'm still learning how to play the instrument. It's not like, now I know how to play, the flute. It's like you're always learning. Now I know how to play the piano. It's it's a process. And this is no different. The only difference is it's what you're really playing is your breath. It's one note, and it's your breath, which is your spirit, amplified into a form that you can hear. And that's the place I wanted to go. I wanted to tune into my spirit. Not only that, but the sound reminded me just a little bit of the place that I went in this experience that I touched into. Like when I play and when I would tune into that sound and I'm breathing, I am not thinking about anything. I'm not feeling anything in my body. I know I'm just in spirit. And for me, it was my umbilical cord to this place that I went to. The Aboriginals call it, well, this is your way of connecting to the dream time. In the dream time, they consider this vibratory realm that the ancestors who created the world through the sound of the didgeridoo exist. And when we play the didgeridoo, we can connect back to the ancestors and to the realm of creation. And since I've been studying sound therapy, as you know, if any of you have heard people talk about it, every culture says the world was created through sound, through vibration. That's the foundation, and that's what modern science is saying. That everything is vibration. It's not these, you know, I studied in organic chemistry, molecules bound together, 5 atoms, and carbon, hydrogen, you know, these balls floating around. It's like, nope, everything is vibratory fields intersecting at different densities, all the way from matter, to ultraviolet, gamma rays, you know, the whole spectrum, light, and everything beyond light, and sound and matter. Sound that we consider sound is only that auditory sound, such a small part of the spectrum. So the didge became immediately a very large part of my life. And because it was my sanity, you know, and it was also a way in my repatterning process to change the way that my body was structured through the sound, through breathing. In Hawaii, they call white people haulis. Hauli means, if you break it down, ha-ole, ha is the breath, and ole means without. So it's actually a derogatory term. You know, like, hey, hauli, you know, it's like, oh, that's what they call white people. Yeah, they call, because we don't breathe. You know, in a lot of Western, modern culture, we're not taught how to use our breath. In most cultures around the world, the word for breath and the word for spirit are the same word. But in English, they're separated. We're separated from, we call breath, breath, and spirit, spirit. But most people, most indigenous ways don't do that. And so there's been this whole process of separation that we've gone through that, especially in the Western world, that we have forgotten our spirit, how to remain connected to the spirit. And sometimes it's through something as simple as breathing. And really breathing, and being conscious of your breath, and using your full lung capacity. Most of us are really, you know, keep this tight and shallow breathers, you know, in the chest. And it becomes a conditioned way, unconscious. Because the breath is the only function in the body that we can affect consciously and unconsciously. So it's very deep access to the other realms within our being, using the breath. So the didge is great medicine, and it has been mine. It's been my biggest teacher. This one note, just circulating the air and set with intention. The other part of sound therapy is using intention coupled with the sound, is what they somehow ride the frequency wave together. And that's what, you can play any kind of music, but if it doesn't have soul in it, doesn't have good intention, people feel that more than, it's more like it's not what you say, it's how you say it. It's kind of like that with music. So I have been talking a while, so I think I'm going to take a little break and play the didge for a few minutes, just to, because I don't want to become a talking head. Sorry if I have already, but I'll go ahead and play.
Thank you.
So the dish came into my life, and it was a tool that started to help me to learn how to breathe. And also I realized that, the foods I was eating just weren't really so happy in my body. There was a lot of things I had to change, and this is since '92 to now, and I'm still going through changes. So I realized I needed to learn about nutrition and find out which foods work for my body, because as my lungs got bigger and more healthy, it started to take up more of my lung. Our lungs are huge. They should take up most of our chest cavity, but most of us, they start to wither with age because we don't use them. So as they're getting bigger, I'm like, wow, I can feel my intestines. They're probably plugged up with stuff, and I was really skinny, but I wasn't healthy, and so the judge was showing me my insides. And I could hear that, if I try this food and, read about it, nutrition, and then my digestion's better, wow, the sound is better. The quality of the sound that comes through the pipe is purer and cleaner. And I realized, you know what? I'm the instrument. We are a didgeridoo. And then soon after this, I discovered St. Francis. My mom, she's such a wise being. She doesn't even know it most of the time. But, she read me this poem, Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. And the first time she read that to me, I was just bawling. I was just crying. There was this whole story behind why she read that to me, but it was like, that was my poem. That was my prayer. I felt so in resonance, and I realized I'm the instrument, and I'm here to let the full voltage of my spirit incarnate into this body, and that's my job. And then from that, I'll know what to do, whatever that is in my life. From there, I can really help the world, because I knew that I was here to help. That's my purpose, whatever that was. I didn't know what I was going to do. So I'm starting to get pieces, and I'm like, okay, I need to get my body healthy. And so I started to, and I knew that, I went to medical school because I wanted to help people. But from a very young age, I was always interested in music. I'm a musician. It's encoded in my DNA. I know that. I pick up an instrument and I play it. Not a maestro right away, but it's just natural. So I know there's something there. But I never saw it as a profession. I was just like, I don't want to get paid paid and have to work to do what I love. You know, it just felt weird. I didn't see how it could work. It just never, I didn't see anybody around me doing that. So anyway, fast forward, I traveled around New Zealand. I'm like, I'm getting about America, crazy country. This is 92. I was like, no, 93 now. And I'm like, America's going down. I saw it. I was like, this country's crazy. So I'm like, I'm moving to New Zealand. I told my parents, packed up all my stuff, and traveled around. But in New Zealand, I had all these initiations. It's long stories. Won't go into it. But I got guidance there, and I traveled around with my didge, playing it, and just, it was a journey. Part of my spiritual crisis, awakening. And I realized, oh, I'm supposed to go to acupuncture school. That was my next step. So, you know, I started to research it, and I told my parents, you know what, I'm not supposed to. And I looked into that in New Zealand. It was too difficult. Doors weren't opening. I'm like, I gotta follow spirit. Spirit's gonna tell me if the doors don't open, don't go that way. So it's like, okay, I'm supposed to go. And it all worked out. I ended up in Hawaii, studying acupuncture in Oahu. And so I ended up 30 needles on myself a day for a year and a half. I couldn't have afforded that much acupuncture. I needed to rewire myself, not only to learn the meridians and Chinese medicine and herbology, and we did Qigong, and you know, it was so I could apparently become an acupuncturist, but really I had a lot to learn. And during that process, that's when I was having lucid dreams. I would die regularly in my dreams. And I had a series of dreams that were my life preview that I referred to, that I was dying in the dream. And it was very, very lucid. And it was like, I was telling my parents, okay, I have this disease. It's called Hodgkin's lymphoma, and I'm going to slowly lose function in my body. And I outlined it to them, and it's already begun, and I'm going to die. And I was telling them this. And I woke up, and I'm like, I've never had a dream like that before. And I looked up in our pathology book, Hodgkin's lymphoma, never heard of it. And it was cancer of the lymph nodes. And it's a full-on thing. You know, the dream was accurate, you know, the symptoms and everything. I was like, and I was given the age too. I would have been 42. I was like, well, that's, you know, if I hadn't had my experience and started to just do all of these changes, play the ditch, change nutrition, do acupuncture, learn herbology, you know, Reiki on myself. I mean, I studied everything, aromatherapy. It was like, imagine a big boulder rolling down a hill, and it's gathering momentum, 21 years of momentum. And it's going in a certain direction. That was my life. And I wanted to go over here because I saw, oh, I'm getting enough perspective now from the big picture of like, okay, I'm gonna hit this end. And it's like, do you want that? Well, obviously I made the choice that it didn't, and I was choosing life. So you need a lot of energy to change the direction of that boulder that's going down that hill. And that's what it's been, a lot of energy. And it's like constant learning, reading, studying, doing everything. Yoga, I mean, it's unbelievable. But at the same time, helping others along the way through the intention to give and to be of service. So it's like we can't share something with others unless we've embodied it ourselves. And I learned that as well. So there's a gift. It's not just all about me and I need to live, but it's like I need to be of service, but if I'm not healthy, I can't serve anybody else. So that's the direction. So I'm in acupuncture school, having these dreams, realizing what's going on, and then I see a flyer. We have this bulletin board in the, I was living at the monastery. I was one of the only students. Everyone else lived in, in the city, and I just wanted some quiet. So I lived up there, and there's no flyers ever on our bulletin board, but there was this one flyer. I still to this day don't know how it got there. But it said Jonathan Goldman, sound as medicine, or sound therapy workshop, or whatever. And I was like, I need to go to that. Wow, what's that, And it was a weekend workshop. So I went. Immediately, Jonathan and I were soul buddies, and he introduced me to the concept of music and medicine. It's actually an ancient art that's been used by cultures since time began. Shamans use it, with their songs, with the drum, with their flutes, and it was just not something I'd ever conceived of before. But during this time when I was in school, they were having me perform. I was playing Didge with their Qigong performances. It was a performing arts school. It was one of the 5 Chinese arts. So I was still, I was playing Native American flute, and I was starting to get into Tibetan bowls and chanting and different things. All these things were coming in. And Jonathan became my mentor now of introducing me to the concept of sound as medicine. So I started to realize, well, that's more interesting to me than acupuncture, really. And at the same time, our school went through a huge major crisis. The Taoist master was kind of dropping out of the scene, who was the reason that I chose that school. She was like a true 52nd in the lineage Taoist master, and she was fading out, and half the class dropped out, and I was one of them. And I moved to Hawaii. And Hawaii, that's my next level of initiation. I mean, it is a magical place. And for me, it was totally, I could spend 2 days telling about stories and synchronicities that happened that changed every step of the way of my life there. So my path, like all of us, is just an unfolding story. But I'm trying to introduce the concepts that got me into sound therapy. And it's not something that I really felt like I chose, like, oh, I want to be a sound therapist. But there were synchronicities all along the way, and doors that open, and spirit guidance. I mean, just because every day I would wake up and go, okay, what do I do today? Where do I go? I really didn't know, genuinely. I was like, for years I felt like I was lost, but really I was found. It was just in a different way that I knew. And it just becomes more and more a way of life, to live with this unknown. It's not all mapped out, but it's trusting that there is a higher order and that spirit is guiding the way. And it's not something that we have in our culture in the Western world, that, it's the opposite. We trust if you don't have insurance and security and, everything's about control rather than just let it all go. And there's such a different way to live. And in Kauai, there's a lot of people that are, we were like the purple sheep all gathered, there. Because we just were dropping out of society and trying to live a new way. Like I was saying, I left my keys in my car. I would go away I traveled a lot from there, and I would just leave my house unlocked, with all my everything, leave my wallet in my car. It's just like, it's a different place, a different way to live. And when people are working to live from that place of unity, it's a different world. We live in a place where there's, especially with the government, that we have right now, cultivating separation and fear. And there is something bigger than that. And even that, I know, is part of the divine plan. It's hard sometimes to see that, especially the further I get from my awakening. I'm like any baby, I'm 16 years old now, right? Since my awakening. So when you get to 16, you're starting to forget, even a lot sooner than that. But, since it happened in a time where I was already formed in a body, I could start, I could use tools that would help me to stay connected. The Didge is one of the, music is one of my major tools to get back to center and to remember what's real. The Maya, they talk about illusion. And there's something else to the Mayan calendar. There are large galactic cycles that are ending at this time. In 2012, 2011, 2012, there's a huge alignment of our sun with the central sun in the galaxy of the Milky Way galaxy. And this only happens once, I don't know the numbers, but a huge amount of time, like millions of years plus. And this is one that's coming up. And the Mayans' calendar is different from our calendar. It was based on cycles that aren't just what we can see. Our sun physically moving, our Earth rotating around our physical sun, 365 days, 365 and 4 days. Their calendar is complex, but it's so precise and cosmic and galactic. And they say, and in fact many cultures say, we're in a time of great transition. And I feel that what I was given in my awakening was, there's another reason for me
being here. And part of it is to be here for this time, and to be here for this end time, which is a birth as well. This it's like a death. We're all looking, well, you know, inconvenient truth, you know, the world can end, and we're all looking at environment, political, economic, you know, social, they're all collapsing. Yay, you know, good, because it's time. And it doesn't mean it has to be chaos and mass destruction and death, you know, it doesn't have to be that way. And I'm here, as many of us are, to be a midwife for this time that we're in. I know that. And using sound, words, my presence, I think, you know, all of us are here to just show up right now and breathe. And that's flamaz. You know, when your mom is going to give birth, what helps? Breathing. Breathe, be present. Takes, you know, the birth's going to happen. But how much suffering, that's optional. You know? And I feel like the Mayans even talked about the 2012 as like a birth date. It's like a due date. Like, oh, 9 months, you know, we're predicting your baby will be born. It's like that. The planet on a fractal scale out is our Mother Earth. And I feel like we are her children. Like all the indigenous people say, we're the children of Mother Earth. Not only are we the children, we are the baby. You put us all together in one collective unity. And that's what I think is going to happen, is we're going to wake up to our unified consciousness. Right now, we're not, it's like a baby in the womb and it doesn't quite know, it's just forming. It's not self-aware. I am hasn't happened, you know? But there will be a point, and I feel that that's what I came in this life for. It's to experience this I am. And there's another story that I'm not going to go into because it will take even longer than the one I told you, that fortifies what I'm talking about right now. It was a glimpse of this experience, of an experience I had. It was a second, I wouldn't say there's an order, but it was another most important experience of my life. Totally changed my life and gave me a vision of what was coming. And it is heaven on earth. And not like, la, 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 we're all angels now. It's like, it's a state of mind, of consciousness, that we don't have to do anything about, like make it happen. Okay, guys, meditate every day and do yoga and eat organic, and all that is good, because if it feels good, we're in the gestation period. Do what's right, you know, if your higher self is telling you that. But this thing that's going to happen, and this is my, not trying to shove it down anybody's throat, but this is my unquestioning reality of why I'm here and what's coming, is it's going to happen. Because there's like, when a baby gets born, it's not the baby saying, okay, I'm going to be born, or the mother saying, okay, you come out now. There's something bigger that's making the baby, that's forming it, and that's orchestrating its birth. And I feel like that's what's happening to us. Even all the chaos and all the apparent duality and separation, and you know, when a baby's in the womb and it's getting ready to be born, it's getting cramped in there. The placenta's getting filled with all kinds of toxic residue, and it's a crisis. The baby's like, okay, this isn't fun anymore. I was floating around in amniotic bliss, and now this sucks. How do I get out? You know? And the mother's kind of feeling it too. The Mother Earth's probably feeling us at this point, you know? So that's the way, you know, and that came, that fractal book, you know, and that idea, that new science of order out of chaos, and fractals, and the universe, as above, so below. Everything's repeating itself infinitely. To me, my science, left brain, and my musical, creative, right, intuitive brain, it all says, yes, this fits together in a worldview that works. You know? And I just want to say I'm really happy to have this opportunity to talk about this, because sometimes I forget. And I know that I'm off track because it doesn't feel right. Like, I've been getting caught up lately in electromagnetic fields and learning about, okay, you know, because we live by these power lines, and I'm getting caught in the polarity of like resistance. Even if I'm not watching the news and going, you know, the government's crazy, I'm going, you know, the electric fields, microwave radiation, and, you know, I can feel myself going down that track. right after my awakening, nothing could touch me. You should have seen some of the stuff I did with my body just to test it out, and that I shouldn't have lived through. And that's the other, I'm not going to go into those stories, but I told you my parents thought I was crazy. But I was fine. I was really fine. And I still am. It's just, how do we remember and stay connected? And how do we remind each other and live in a world where we are constantly reminding each other? Because that's how we will bring in these coming times in a peaceful way. Because they're coming. There's nothing that's going to stop what's happening already.
What is happening?
What, sorry?
What is coming?
With what I saw was, it's like a birth and it's like a death, which are kind of the same thing. But in the Western world, we are taught to fear that so much, especially death. And so we don't talk about it, we pretend it's not there. But what I see is coming is, and this is also hard to put into words, like my experience. So I'm, as always, trying my best, because I feel like that's part of what I'm here to do, is a kind of I am presence awakening on the planet, as far as us realizing our unity, not just conceptually, because right now every religion will say we're one. Every religion says that. Every spiritual practice says that. But we don't, there's a difference between knowledge and understanding. And understanding, and language can be so limiting. That's why attention is important. It's like sound therapy. If I can just convey more than words, what the concepts and the visions and the ideas behind the words, then you can get more what I'm saying. Or I can convey that more accurately, but I have to have embodied it to do that. So what I feel is that we're going to wake up. It'll become understanding, our unity. And I've had experiences of that. Like that telepathic experience was a little bit of what I'm talking about. And if any of you have experienced a telepathic experience, not just, I was just thinking the same thing, but I'm talking a conversation. Like, it doesn't happen. It's happened more than once during that 4-year crisis time. There was more than one experience. But it's not like I have these things every day. It can be that way. I've heard that indigenous people have the ability to, some indigenous people have the ability to consciously use telepathy as a form of communication over vast distances, including the Aboriginal people. And that's part of the reason I'm really interested in that culture. They're the only culture that has survived ice ages, the rise and fall of every civilization on the planet. And they're the only culture that has not domesticated animals, built houses, developed agriculture. They've stayed connected to the planet, and they've cultivated, they never got wiped out. They've lived through it all. Even the Greek and the Romans and all the history. You're not going to read about Aboriginal history because they didn't write stuff down. They lived it. And we think they're savage and uneducated, and we're so much more advanced technologically. Yes, we can blow up things, and we have computers. But there's so many other levels of technology of the spirit that we may have forgotten, that are still in there. And I feel like connecting back into indigenous cultures through their music, when I play the Native American flute or explore the music of different cultures, I feel, or some of the rhythms of Africa, I feel like they encode information in that pattern of sound. And we get it on these other levels. And they have to have these experiences with music. And the Aboriginal culture, I feel, has communicated with me through that pure drone tone. That's this field of information that uploads us with their wisdom and their experience. So there were 3 questions. I obviously talking too much. So there was you, and then you, and then you. So
Are you saying that the next generation, we are going to be realizing our I am?
not next generation. I think. Oh, she was saying in the next generation, do you feel like we're going to be
Or
realizing
in
that
this
I am?
generation?
I don't think it's about a generation. I think it's a time. like within the next few years.
Now.
Well, according to these big galactic cycles, and if there's any accuracy of our correlation with their timekeeping, we're talking the next 3 to 4 years. Major something. And I'm excited about it. My mind can be terrified because I look at the planet and it's easy to go there. But I don't watch the news. You know, the news is owned by just a very few minority individuals. And, you know, them and us, the whole conspiracy thing, I don't need to go there because I've gone somewhere else that I know is more truth, that feels more like truth to me. And that's the ultimate, is whatever feels right for you. You know, and feels right on a lot of different levels, that we need to cultivate the awareness of knowing. But that's where the truth lies, not in what someone tells you in your mind, says, okay, well that's logical. The Western mind is so linear, Newtonian, left brain, you know, we need to use our entire beings, not just our entire brain. So that's my feeling, that it's coming in this
I
time.
see that everybody's searching, and spirituality everywhere.
She was saying,
Grateful.
just so I didn't repeat the question. So you were asking, do you feel like the next generation is when it's going to? And then I said,
Question.
it's because I think it's happening in not just a generation thing, but now. And then she's saying that everybody is searching right now. There's a lot of every kind of spiritual endeavor or seeking is coming out. So yeah.
What are the Aboriginals that you have had experience that they are into telepathic, in growing and realizing the spirit? Which Aboriginals in the world? that
Which
you have
Aboriginals?
experienced
You mean
that
which
work-
tribe?
Yeah, which tribes in
Oh.
the world for telepathy?
Well, I'm not very educated on the names of the different cultures. I just heard it from the Aboriginals of Australia. I've heard this in, you know, I haven't spent years like Joseph Campbell studying in depth all the different religions and what's actually been recorded in their experiences. In fact, a lot of historians don't care about the esoteric part, so it doesn't get recorded. So this is just in the last 16 years of reading books and exploring these topics, hearing about, wow, indigenous people use these methods of communications. They could communicate with animals. They could have animals send messages to nearby, you know, you hear these stories, and I've heard it too much from enough indigenous and enough different sources about different indigenous tribes that I just pass on that knowledge saying, well, I totally believe, I've had experiences just spontaneously of that kind of thing. So I know it's possible. But these people have grown up in a culture that supports that. From a little kid, they never got deculture, whatever, brainwash, you know, to lose the ability to do things. So
with your knowledge and your awareness that your channel for this energy to come through your music, how do you use your music besides performance? Do you use it in healing people in hospitals, and how do you use your music?
did everyone get that question? She's wondering how I'm using the music or
your sound.
my sound for other people.
Yeah. What do you actually do?
The main thing that I do are individual sessions with people, and
That looks like what? Like what?
that would look like, it depends on the context. If I'm on my home turf where I have all my instruments, it's a little bit more, because I can't travel. A lot of the instruments I have like 8 huge crystal bowls and 4 different kinds of didges and this huge water phone, and a lot of the instruments are just not transportable or not easily. And I also have a sound table that I can play live music into the sound that vibrates the bed, or a CD of frequencies that balance the chakras. And then I'll use, you know, around the fields of the body, I'll play the instruments live.
So you tune into the energy of someone's body.
I will.
That's what I'm
Yes.
interested in hearing more.
Okay.
Actually, what you do to
Oh,
feel.
okay. See, now that's what I'm used to talking about. I'll spend 2 hours on that, and you know, and even demonstrating that. But I didn't know how much to focus on sound therapy, because this is a group for, you know, more about the
Well,
experience.
it goes together.
Yeah, definitely.
I want to make sure by 5 o'clock that we hear that.
Okay.
So I would like to know how you heal, how you, like you tune into people's energy levels and you use your
It's an
sound.
intuitive process. It definitely is. In tuning into a person's energy field. And I look at sound as a tool like the didgeridoo of reflecting the energetic state of their energy fields around the body. And I can hear the difference in when I put, the didge is my favorite tool for sound therapy because, and I didn't start using it for about 4 or 5 years of playing, which I feel is important because I had to clear out myself enough that stuff, okay, I'll give you an example. I would play the didge over somebody's body. This was after about 4 years of playing, even at the beginning. And I would get to a certain part, and the sound all of a sudden sounded like it was a bunch of cotton with stuff up in the end. And I would be like, well, that's weird. And so I would, intuitively, I'd just take the didge, move it away from the body, and trumpet it. I can make the next octave sound, trumpet it. So I just blow a burst, like a trumpet sound. And then I'd go back and play the didge. It would be clear now. Sometimes it would happen again. And so I was like, I even had experience of doing that, and I felt like something moved the didge, like almost pushed it, like it jerked it away. And I was like kind of freaked out by that. So I was like, okay, there's something that I don't know consciously that's going on with the sound. And when I'm playing, I'm just using intention. I'm not saying, I'm going to heal your liver. You know, I don't even usually ask what's going on with the person because I don't want my mind to get involved. I want to use my whole being. So I'll just play with the intention of, you know, whatever frequencies are going to be beneficial to harmonizing this person's being, mind, body, spirit, emotions, may I be the channel for that. And just be praying, or just clear my mind, really. And that's where I come from when I play music. It's always, I don't have pieces, I play songs, it's all improvisational. And that's because I feel like I'm playing the music of the person that I'm playing to. And often I'll record the session so the person can hear it back later. I also do group sound journeys where everybody lies on the ground, and I do the same kind of thing, my intention is that I'm creating a group field, and I'm playing the music for our collective energy field, and for the land that we're on, honoring that frequency. Because if you think of this building wasn't here, what's beneath it? There's the earth. You know, and what if we were all right now sitting on the earth? We'd probably be feeling hurt. And be like, wow, I wonder what happened here 200 years ago. Maybe there was a ceremony here, you know, or maybe we can send our healing into the earth, our mother, you know. And so I think about no matter where I am, what I'm doing, we're creating a group energy. That's why I like to sit in a circle. And I look at myself from like my awakening. I'm the voice. I'm not any better, different than anyone else in this circle that I'm with, but we all have a different role. And this is my role. I'm the flapping lips that's going to play the didgeridoo, or play the flute, or sing this chant. But I'm creating a reflection that's the group sound. You know, that's why I don't like it to be a performance. You know, like, oh, thank you, Kimba. It's not, I don't want to take credit for it. It doesn't feel as good as if we all go, wow, we're one. As that's a result of the experience. Not, look how great I am, I play the didge, you know? That's why I never went into music as a profession, I thought. I never wanted to do that because I didn't want people to watch me. It's like, here, watch me meditate. Look how good I am meditating. You know, it's weird. So I never conceived of being able to do this. You know, so after I play, I should say at the beginning, you know, you don't have to clap. Just let it go in. Don't think about me. How did she do that? You know, how did she play that? Or, you know, I play a lot of other instruments besides this, and it's like, they're all mainly air instruments. It's because I just want to be the voice, the breath. But that's my role, you know, but we're one. It's like, well, is a liver cell any better than the lung cell? Or a brain cell? They're just different. And when they all operate together, so my hope is that when I play music, it activates like a key in each person that hears it a little bit more of what am I here to do? What's my sole purpose? May not be to be a didge player, may be to be a gardener. You know, and right now I'm a physician, or I'm a, you know, school teacher, but I really want to make pots or something. You know, and just like, if you had all the time and money in the world, what would you do? That you don't care, you lose track of time, you don't care if you get paid to do, that's what you should be doing. That's what I'm doing. You know, often I forget, okay, I need to pay rent. Okay, I gotta charge for this. Okay, money, you know, and it's like a whole different thing. I don't think indigenous people live that way. That's why bartering is kind of nice. In Kauai, there's a lot of bartering, you know. How we use our breath is priceless. If we take our time talking to somebody, or just saying hi and sharing a friendly word, we've done our work for the day. You know, if we brighten someone else's life just by our presence, it doesn't matter what we do or how much we make. It's like that's what I feel. This is my philosophy. Our life breath is precious. And you can't put a price on that.
You self-taught on the didgeridoo?
Huh?
Are you self-taught?
Yeah, it's one note. He asked if I'm self-taught. When I first was playing, the man who made these had a group of people that would get together and just trip out and play together and just, you know, play the didge, because he had a little circle in Tucson. So I had a group of people I played with, and that was really helpful, just to have that group energy. But all the techniques, how to circular breathing is like, I could do it, but 4 years of refining it so it's seamless.
Right.
And then now I don't feel like it's changing much. It was just like a lot of little inner steps that I feel were actually fed through the dream time, through connecting to that frequency of information and energy that taught me how to play, and the different rhythms and information even that comes through. Like, I'm not thinking about anything and going, oh yeah, but there's a kind of wisdom that is carried in the sound, including how to play. So when people want to learn how to play, I say just play. And don't think, I want to be a great didge player. Don't have any intention other than a pure spirit. What's drawing you to that? And you will be given everything you need to know from that place. You have to be really clear to receive that transmission, I think, in what your intention is. Because it's such a powerful, it's one note, but in that one vibrating string are all the frequencies of creation. It's almost like the simpler something is, the more complex it can be. And that's how I feel about the didge. I've had some dreams that showed me, you know, the math of it. And it's just like, wow, there's a lot going on there. And so, you know, before playing any instrument really, it's important to just set your intention. You know, or with anything that you do, setting your intention will ride the frequency of whatever you share. We only have like 2 minutes left, so you've had a question, and then you too.
I still want to believe that, you know, 2012 will be a world transformation. The I am consciousness will be commonplace. We want to believe it, and most of us in this room are seeking full awareness, being awake. But we see a lot of myopic thinking in the West and male-dominated cultures. How can, let's say, folks who are not seeking awareness all of a sudden sort of magically, cosmically be changed, whereas those who are intentionally seeking to be awake?
He was asking, you know, a lot of us want to believe that the I am presence and, you know, global consciousness is going to emerge, but it seems like there's a lot of people that are still asleep. And how do they get it, basically? How does that get conveyed? And there's a phenomenon in science, in chemistry, and also something called the 100th monkey, which is an experiment they did with these apes, where using consciousness and awareness of a certain thing, that once a certain critical mass is reached, it creates a field. And there's another researcher called Rupert Sheldrake, who talks about morphogenic fields. He wrote The Presence of the Past and a bunch. He's an amazing being too, and read his stuff. Because he talks about morphogenic fields, and how consciousness is conveyed beyond the normal means that we know how to talk about with our current science.
What is
And
his name?
Rupert Sheldrake, Sheldrake, Rupert. And morphogenic fields is the concept. But what I feel in the answering that question is that we need to be the change, right? The Gandhi, and we need to live from that place and hold that frequency. And the more people not looking out and going, well, they're not doing it, so I don't have to. we're not gonna get there. Just if we embody that as much as we are able to, knowing that enough of us are doing this, we'll create a mass. Oops.
It's about a buck. Michael's
That was the end. I'm just gonna shout it to the world. Just trust in yourself, and that just do your part, and the field will grow. To the
Switch it, she said. Switch the mic.
Now it won't go on at all. I think at 5, really, it just hit 5 o'clock.
It did.
It's a linear time thing, they're not.
Explain what your CDs are.
There's 4 CDs. Peace. We ran out of batteries.
Right at
Peace
5.
Journey. That's divine timing.
Yeah, 5 o'clock.
That was divine timing. At 5 o'clock.
Exactly, wow.
Oh my God. That's even more cool than if they shut it off. But, so there's, Healing Ditch is the instructional CD, that's 15. Peace Journey is 15, and then there's two CD sets. Do you want me to talk into that?
But what are they? Peace Journey, what is it?
It's all music. They're all, she's asking what Peace Journey is. They're music.
The bookstore is still open, and you can still purchase her CDs in the back, and I'm sure she'd be glad to sign them for you.
And the two CD sets are 20. The 2 CD sets are 20, and
There
the
are
other 2 are 50.
4 different CDs. Two of them are actually multiple sets, so there are 2 CDs in each one, and those are 20. And then the other 2 are single CDs, and those are 15 each. So please go do, have a good time. Hope to see you at Ruby's,
Thanks,
and
Kimba.
definitely hope to see you next month.
Thank you.